You're listening to the Phillip Jordan Show, talking SEC football and beyond.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Phillip Jordan Show. I am Phillip Jordan from Last Word College Football, where I cover the Auburn Tigers. A lot of news around Auburn Tigers right now. And also, I am the in-studio host and producer for Dothan Wolves Football on 96.9 The Legend in Dothan, Alabama. Welcome into the show. It is Wednesday, coming to you a day early just because Thanksgiving is coming on Thursday. Wanted to bring this episode of podcast for you a day early. So Thursday pod on a Wednesday. You're going to enjoy it. Matt Lowe will be joining me, the owner of lowdownsports.com and also part of Field Level Media as well. Matt will be joining me. We will go through the new college football playoff rankings that were released on Tuesday evening, and it was fresh. We went on and recorded that conversation not too long after they were released, so we get into that. And we will touch on Michigan and Ohio State and also USC Notre Dame, and then we'll jump into the SEC schedule for Rivalry Weekend. A lot of games we're going to go through. We're going through a bunch of them. We go about 44 minutes in my conversation with Matt. Then when we get done with that, I'm going to go over some Facebook comments I got for you guys. I had two questions I asked this week. One, just kind of reached out, see what you guys thought of Lane Kiffin to Auburn. Is that the right hire? Should they do it? Looks like that's coming. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when Lane Kiffin will become the new head coach of the Auburn Tigers. And also ask the question, what are you thankful for this college football season? And we'll keep that one going. So maybe even next week, even though Thanksgiving will be past us, I'll get into more on that topic. But before I jump into my conversation with Matt Lowe, let you guys know you can find me in the podcast. You can find me on social media at PJordanSEC. Podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. You can also check out the show over on YouTube at the Phillip Jordan YouTube channel. I will shortly be rebranding that as the Phillip Jordan Show YouTube channel. I've not done that yet, but that will be coming here very, very soon. But if you check out on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications, and please leave a comment on a video, and I'll read that on a future edition as well. You can always email me on sportstalkphilipjordan@gmail.com. Now, let's jump into my conversation with Matt Lowe, where we preview Rivalry Week in college football in the SEC. Everybody, it's not Thursday, it's Wednesday, but due to Thanksgiving, we're doing this a day early. I'm Phillip Jordan from Last Word College Football, joined as I am to preview the games every week. Matt Lowe, owner of lowdownsports.com. You check him out over at Field Level Media as well. He's covering some Auburn basketball. Just got done Auburn basketball as we are recording this. But Matt, it's week 13. It's rivalry week. It's a big week on the calendar when it comes to college football season, but it also means this is the last week of the regular season.
Yeah, and if it's anything like last weekend was, we're in for a treat, bro. I mean, that was one of the craziest weekends of college football I've ever seen.
Yeah, and neither one of us were really all that too enthusiastic last week when we made these picks for last week. I remember we spent no time on the South Carolina-Tennessee game. We just went right through it. We passed through that one. We both got Arkansas over Ole Miss right. I don't think neither one of us saw the blowout coming. But yeah, it was a very interesting week 12 because all the top 5 teams, I mean, they were tested. I mean, Georgia did not have an easy time with Kentucky. Ohio State, Michigan got tested. TCU, I mean, just the awesome job, just the organization of the fire drill and the kick at the end there, and then Tennessee gets upset. So it was actually one of the more interesting weeks in the year, and us and many other people out there thought it would be kind of a boring weekend.
Yeah, and we were about on the verge of just a total meltdown of just the top 10 teams. I mean, like you said, those couple of teams, like, Michigan, TCU, they could all lost very easily. And tell you what, Illinois, I mean, Brett Bielema, he's doing a heck of a job there. But yeah, the South Carolina game, about 10 minutes into it, you were like, man, this is – and they just kept scoring. I mean, and then I don't know. It was just crazy how that game played out. And then the Vanderbilt Commodores, I think you said that was going to be a good game last week, and it turned out to be that. And I think, too, it's like I said last week, Phillip, the pressure starts getting real heavy on these teams, especially in the ones that are playing for championships.
It does. It does. You're seeing it. Who can handle the pressure and who can't. And, this is kind of time of year. We separate contenders from pretenders in November. And talk about some of those teams, of course, I think this is kind of fresh. It's somewhat fresh for me. I know it's fresh for you, but we recorded this on Tuesday, and they did release the new college football playoff rankings, and nothing changed in the top 4. But look at number 5. LSU is number 5, Southern Cal 6, Alabama 7, Clemson 8, Oregon 9, and Tennessee falls all the way to number 10. So what the committee is telling me here, if LSU beats Georgia in 2 weeks in Atlanta, LSU is going to be in the playoff.
Yeah, and of course, you're going to have a loser too with in the Big Ten there too. So I think if TCU might could have a loss and win the Big 12 and get in. I don't know. USC, they're in good shape. I don't see a scenario where Alabama gets in unless Georgia just completely falls apart here at the end. Question is if Ohio State and Michigan play, a really tight game, then whoever wins that game goes on and wins the Big Ten. I mean, does that other team potentially sneak in? I don't know. But, yeah, LSU is in prime position to make it. I mean, of course, they're going to have to beat Georgia, though.
Yeah, and the thing is with Ohio State, Michigan, I look at it like Michigan needs that win more than Ohio State because the Michigan non-conference schedule. If it comes down to them and some other teams, that's going to be a big talking point that could hurt them. Because Ohio State, they've got that win at the beginning of the year against Notre Dame, which it looked like a really good win when they won. And then a few weeks after, Notre Dame gets a couple losses. So we're like, and Marshall was one of the teams that beat them there. We're like, okay, Notre Dame's not that good. And now we look at Notre Dame toward the end of the year. They're much improved. They are a better team. So that win now looks good once again. So that helps Ohio State. So that's the thing I look at with Ohio State, Michigan this Saturday. And Blake Corum, who knows, we're recording this on Tuesday, running back, got hurt against Illinois. Who knows his status for Saturday? That'll be a big storyline going into that one. So Michigan needs to win more than Ohio State if the loser of that game was to still get in the playoff, I think.
Yeah, and I think snow's in the forecast for that game too. And I'm just going to say this. I've watched Michigan and I've watched Ohio State. I think Michigan's the better team. Now, losing Corum, that hurts. And, of course, in that game in Columbus, that's big. That's in Columbus, of course. But I don't know. I just something's telling me I'm leaning Michigan in this game. I like because, their offensive line, their center, I can't remember his name. He's got a weird name. And their guard – those two dudes are maulers up front, and that offensive line they got. I mean, it's a really good line. So I think that offensive line, and especially if it's snowing and cold and windy and the elements like that, I lean Michigan.
Yeah, I do too. If that's the case, that does go in more of their favor because Ohio State offensively is more a finesse team. They are throw the ball around. Michigan's going to grind you. They want to run the ball, physical. And when the elements are against you, the more physical, the run team, that usually benefits them. And look, I think Ohio State's going to have some questions to answer because I think they still have that question. Are they tough enough? Remember what happened last year when they played Michigan? Michigan was more physical than them. I mean, Ohio State looked soft, and look, there was a couple weeks ago against Northwestern. They look kind of soft there too. So I think there's a lot of questions for both of these teams to answer. And it's crazy. We're at this point in the season. They're both undefeated. This is the de facto Big Ten championship game. But that's going to be there's still some big questions to be answered for those two teams.
Yeah, I mean, and there's still a lot to shake out in all of this. I mean, especially in the Pac-12. I think if USC wins out, I think they'll get in.
Yeah, because you'll have a win against Notre Dame, who is a top 25 team now, and then you're going to play either Oregon or Washington. If Oregon beats Oregon State this weekend, Oregon's going to the game. So you beat a really good Oregon team as well, their 2 losses, blowout to Georgia, then a 3-point loss to Washington. And then Washington's a good team too as well. And then you just beat UCLA. So that's a resume. That's a big time resume builders for USC. But defensively, they're not good. They are. If anybody watched that UCLA game, so we'll see. That's going to be another interesting thing with them this weekend. That night game, playing Notre Dame.
Yeah, and they lost their best player on defense in Gentry, their linebacker, he's like 6'5" or 6'6". But one thing USC does is they turn people over, and they've done it all year, and they did it against UCLA. They get turnovers, so that's always a good combination when you can score points and turn people over.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun. So we're going to be going through all these SEC games, but those are 2 big games too. People need to be paying attention to, and we get started on Thursday night, Matt, with the SEC action, with the Egg Bowl. I always look forward to this Thursday night. Be propped up in my chair in my couch, suffering from all the gluttony I will be committing on Thursday going into it. But the Egg Bowl. These are 2 teams, Mississippi State 7-4, Ole Miss, they are 8-3 on the year. Ole Miss is a 2-point favorite in this one. The over-under is 59. We talked about this off air. Mike Leach 0-2 against Ole Miss since he got Mississippi State, and he was 1-8 at Washington State against Washington. So he has not been good in these rivalry games. But again, Ole Miss is the home team, but there's so many questions around the program right now. And who knows by the time this comes out what the next rumor news topic around Lane Kiffin's going to be. This seems like a really good opportunity for Mississippi State to get a win here, because the Ole Miss defense isn't good either. I mean, they have shown time and time again the second year they have been good. So I don't know, Matt, what are your thoughts going this game? Because there seems like there's so many elements going into this matchup, and once again, the Lane Kiffin distractions are there.
Yeah, and look, we talked about this last week with going into Arkansas. I mean, it was cold up there. It was kind of rainy. But Ole Miss just lost a chance to win the SEC West. I mean, any team's going to be down after that. And they just got ambushed. From watching Mississippi State this year, I think they run like a 3-3-5 stack defense, like a base defense. So they're not really built to stop potent running teams. Mm-hmm. And I think Ole Miss bounces back and gets a win here in this game, despite all the rumors, look, it's still your rival. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't get up for your rival. You got issues. So Leach is 0-2 already in this game in his career in the Egg Bowl. So I think Ole Miss shows up. I think Ole Miss is the better team. And, I've really been puzzled this year about Leach, and it just seems like he's kind of gone away from throwing the ball all over the yard, and I understand you want to try to run the ball too, but I think seems like he's gone against a little bit. It's what's made him successful. But I mean, I like Ole Miss at home, and I like their ground game. I think there's going to be I think rain might be involved in the forecast too, so I think that benefits Ole Miss as well.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm probably going to be wrong here. I think I'm going to pick Mississippi State to pull off the upset in this one. It's just because, and obviously I'm paying attention to all the Lane Kiffin stuff. And the latest thing is here on Tuesday, they had a team meeting, but really Lane has not done anything to diffuse the Auburn stuff. He has not said, I'm not going to Auburn. Look, he has a contract sitting on his desk, apparently. That's been the report, a contract extension. He hasn't signed it. If my thing is, if he was so adamant to stay at Ole Miss, he probably would have signed that contract extension by now. So, and I don't know. I just kind of wonder where this team's going to be at going into this game. You're right. It's the rivalry. I do believe it's a good game, but I think Mississippi State's going to find a way to win this one.
Gotcha.
So it makes it better for the show too if we don't pick all the same teams.
Sure.
I think we did that last week, but
sure.
we thought last week was going.
We lost a lot too last week.
Yeah, we showed no respect to that Tennessee South Carolina game when we got to it. We got 2 games on Friday, and look, I'm not going to do it, but I'm just going to say Arkansas and LSU should be playing on the day after Thanksgiving.
For sure.
You've heard me talk about that 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I will, whenever they're scheduled to play, and the day after Thanksgiving, I will complain. But you will have 6-5 Arkansas playing 5-6 Missouri, 2:30 on CBS. Arkansas, they are a 4-point favorite in this one. Arkansas coming off that impressive 42-27 victory over Ole Miss. KJ Jefferson was back. You see all the difference when he's on the field for this team. Completely different offensively. Rocket Sanders had 232 yards and 3 touchdowns. Interesting, though, looks like Bumper Poole may miss the final 2 games of his Arkansas career. Sam Pittman said he is banged up going into this one. He is their second best defensive player. This team is really good getting to a quarterback, but they don't do anything else really good on defense. 13th in the conference in yards allowed. Missouri got their 5th win. They're looking for win number 6 to secure a bowl game, and they're really good on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to pick this one first. I think Missouri is going to win this one. I think Missouri is going to find a way, get to 6-6. Arkansas is up and down. They've got 2 good weapons at receiver in Dominic Lovett and Luther Burden. I like Brady Cook. He's consistent. He's a solid quarterback. Not great. He's not even really good, but he's just solid. And Missouri is the 4th best defense in yards allowed in the conference and 4th against the run. So I think they're going to put more pressure on KJ Jefferson. But what are your thoughts going into this game, Matt?
I think Arkansas has been playing better on defense. I think they figured some things out there. The one thing about Cook with Missouri is he's just turnover prone. And I think that this game could come down to that. I like Arkansas here. Rocket Sanders is coming off a big performance against Ole Miss, but everybody's ran on Ole Miss all year. I mean, that's not been Ole Miss just hasn't been a good run-stopping team. But like KJ Jefferson, one of his last games as an Arkansas player. So I'm going to go with the Razorbacks. I think this is going to be like a 30-27 game, but once again, rain could come into play here too. So keep that in mind when you're when other people are making their picks too. So I'm going to go Arkansas 30-27.
Yeah, I think it should be a good one. Which it's Missouri. Every game they're in is a close one. About. I mean, most of their games. I mean, their record should be better than it is. I mean, just all the close losses they have this year. So the other night this year, something new for this year. Florida and Florida State will be playing Friday night. Florida 6-5. Who knows what we're going to get from Florida week in and week out? I mean, what they beat South Carolina, 38-6 the week before, and then you turn around and you lose to Vanderbilt. Florida State's 8-3. They're playing really well this year. Mike Norvell seems to have that thing turned around. Florida State, they are a 9.5-point favorite. Over under is 58. I just gotta say this: what happened to Florida against Vanderbilt? And no disrespect to Vanderbilt. I mean, they did everything right. Vanderbilt looked like the better coach team Saturday. Watching that game, but Florida's just so up and down, and I guess watching them. Some weeks it's like they run Anthony Richardson a lot, and in other weeks they don't. He threw for 400 yards against Vanderbilt, but man, their offense works so much better when they're including him in the run game, and they didn't do that against Vanderbilt. And they can't stop the run. Florida State I mean, I don't know. I don't know which Florida Gators team we're going to get on Friday night.
And that's been the story of them all year long. And is that a coaching thing? I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I'm in agreement with you. I think when they're playing their best is Richardson's running the ball.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like the structure of their offense is based around running the ball, and you get other guys involved too on the zone read plays and the RPOs and stuff like that. Against Kentucky, when they lost to Kentucky, he only had a few yards rushing that game. It was just I'm in agreement with you, but I think this is a big line. I mean, Florida State got drilled by Syracuse a couple of weeks ago. I mean, they got thumped. So, I don't know. I tend to. I mean, Florida State's one game away from winning 9 games, and if they get in the bowl game and win 10, that'll be a pretty good year. So I'm gonna roll with Florida State here. It wouldn't surprise me if Florida won. I think regardless, Florida will cover. But I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I like Florida State 34, Florida 31.
Yeah, I'm in that range too. I think Florida State wins. Here's an interesting stat. Florida State leads the ACC in third down percentage at 51%. So that's big. So they stay on the field too. Their offense stays on the field, and I think that running game helps them out because they get in manageable situations. I'm with you too as well. I think Florida State wins this game, and it's just because you can't trust Florida. I mean, that's just kind of how it is right now with them. We'll just see what they can do. Starting on Saturday, I don't think we'll spend too much time on this one, Matt. 5-6 Georgia Tech at 11-0 Georgia. Georgia is a 36.5-point favorite. The over-under is 49 points. I guess they're expecting Georgia to win, 37-12 or 37-13, somewhere in that range. Of course, Georgia for me. Any chance Georgia Tech has at making this a game?
I think they could cover. They went. They've won 2 of their last 3. They went into North Carolina and won. I don't think this is going to be a game where Kirby Smart runs up the score. But the moment I say that, they'll beat them 70-0. But I think Georgia methodically wins this game. But once again, though, senior day, that game's in Athens, so you might see some guys coming in and. The game could be 30-7 in the fourth quarter and some new guys get in. They want to score, and the coach wants them to score. So I could see a scenario where Georgia does cover that way, but I like Georgia something like 37-10, something like that.
It feels like it's been so long since this has really felt like a rivalry between these two.
Long time.
Mark Richt had some issues with Georgia Tech. I think Georgia Tech beat Kirby his first year, but hadn't beat them since. And, Mark Richt would have years where he would lose to a much lesser than Georgia Tech team. And Georgia Tech would every now and then beat them. But, yeah, obviously they're rivals. They play each other every year. But, yeah, it kind of almost feels like what Alabama, Tennessee had become before this year.
Yeah, and who was the coach that ran the triple option over there? What was his
Paul
name?
Johnson.
Paul Johnson. His teams gave Georgia a lot of issues, which that style of offense is hard to prepare for in a week. So I know that from experience with some schools around here, but I don't know. This used to be a heck of a rivalry. In the 80s and 90s, I think Georgia Tech, man. It's kind of like Vanderbilt. The schools, it's so hard to get into, but to me, there's no reason why they should be a good team. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of players in Georgia that are talented enough to get on that roster and also smart enough. So I just think that's a program. They need to get a coach in there that has a certain style, like I've talked about before, that can score points.
Yeah, and not even the state, the city. Atlanta. Just recruit Atlanta. Yeah. Get a guy in there that can just recruit the city, and you should be much better. But we'll see. They have played better since the firing of the head coach early in the year. I will, admit that they were, one game away from being bowl eligible, but it's not going to happen here against Georgia.
That's another last week. North Carolina, they were a 3-touchdown favorite.
They were up 17-0 to start.
And it's like all these teams that were huge favorites, barely escaped or they lost. It was just a really bizarre week, and it caught everybody by surprise. Yeah, that's the beauty of college football.
I say it is a beautiful yet chaotic sport, and that's why we all love it.
Sure.
The other 11 o'clock game on Saturday, and I'll let everybody know, we will do the Iron Bowl last. That will be the last one, so we'll skip over that in the schedule. 7-4 South Carolina will be at 10-1 Clemson, who, with everything that happened last week, they may be in play for the playoff if some things can happen in front of them. Clemson, they are a 14.5-point favorite in this one. The over-under for the game is 52 points. I think I look at this and I just wonder, South Carolina did such a good job last week. against Tennessee, 63-38. Spencer Rattler looked like the quarterback he was supposed to be when he arrived at Oklahoma. 30 of 37, 438, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But I look at this, obviously Clemson's a good run defense. They only give up 104 yards per game on the ground. If DJ does not turn the ball over and make mistakes, I just find it hard for South Carolina, and going on the road, man, it feels like it's going to be very hard for them to get up emotionally 2 weeks in a row like they did against Tennessee. I'm going to take Clemson to win this one. I think Clemson probably wins about 27-17, somewhere in there. I think South Carolina gives them a little bit of a fight, but I just think it's going to be too hard for that team to get up 2 weeks in a row. Yeah,
and I mean, you walk around campus and everybody's patting you on the back. You're a hero. You know, you beat, Tennessee, and that's always that always comes into play, I think, too, with college football as well. I'm in agreement with you. I like, Clemson's run game there with Shipley. And
yeah, he's good.
Yeah, he's real good. I hadn't been impressed, to be honest with you, though, Phillip. I haven't been impressed with Clemson this year. So it wouldn't surprise me if South Carolina goes in there and maybe gets them. And if they play like they did last weekend, I think they definitely could go in there and get them. But I'm with you. I just don't see that happening. But I do think South Carolina covers. And it was interesting watching that game. And Shane Beamer at halftime, he was like, we just went into this game wanting to be aggressive in all phases of the game. I was like, what happened last week when you played Florida? I mean, and sometimes getting your butt kicked helps. Mm-hmm. I mean, and they look like a team that came out fired up and motivated. And will they do that again? We'll see. But once again, weather is going to can come into play everywhere, so that's something to keep an eye on. But I'm with you. I like Clemson. I like Clemson. I think, I'll say 30-20.
Okay. I know going into last week, when I was thinking about Clemson, I said, North Carolina's going to beat them in the ACC championship game. Well, now since North Carolina lost to Georgia Tech, when that game rolls around, I don't really know. But we'll kind of – they play NC State on Friday, so we'll see if they bounce back and kind of get back to what they were doing before. So, but yeah, it feels bad. Weird, same as Clemson. The quarterback, I think, holds them back. Both quarterbacks, DJ and I think Cade Klubnik. It's kind of interesting. Dabo Swinney got the benefit of having 2 NFL quarterbacks, and Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. So we'll see how Clemson is. It's like they're good, but they're not the Clemson we used to see.
No, and once again, and those 2 guys you just mentioned were really good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those are 2 special players, especially Deshaun. I mean, Deshaun's one of the best college quarterbacks I've ever seen. But yeah, I mean, and losing those coordinators too, Phillip. I mean, you lose those coordinators like that, especially some of the best in the country. It hurts your program a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Another ACC-SEC matchup, and I'll be honest with you, this is Louisville at Kentucky. I haven't really watched Louisville play a lot this year. I'm just going to be honest with the audience. They're a 7-4 team. Kentucky 6-5, lost 16-6 to Georgia past week. Kentucky's a 3-point favorite, 2:00 kickoff on the SEC Network. The over/under is 43, which makes sense because Kentucky doesn't score a whole lot of points. Kentucky's won 3 in a row in this series. Louisville did win last week. They beat NC State 25-10. And then check this out. This is an interesting stat I did see when I was looking up some stuff on this game. Kentucky, on average, gives up 3.6 sacks per game. Will Levis has been sacked 40 times this season. Now, when you look on the other side, Louisville leads the nation in sacks with 41 on the year. But their quarterback, Malik Cunningham, he is day-to-day. I was reading stuff. They expect him to play in the game, but still he has an injury issue there. I feel like this is probably going to be a lower scoring game. The Kentucky defense, I think it's going to be a typical Kentucky game. They probably win like 21-17. What do you think?
I like Louisville. Louisville's been playing good. I watched them play Central Florida, and I was impressed with their defense. Now, if Malik plays, that's really big because he's dynamic. I mean, he can run and throw, and Brock Doman played there at quarterback for him last week, and He played pretty good. He didn't make any mistakes, so that's a good thing. Jawar Jordan is a good little tailback for him, though. So I think Louisville goes in there and upsets Kentucky. I just do not like the way Kentucky's playing right now.
Their offense is not good. They started 4-0. They've lost 5 of 7 since.
Yeah, I mean, and let's see here. Louisville 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Louisville's won 5 of their last 6 games, and their only loss was to Clemson. So, and that was at Clemson. So I like Louisville with the upset.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good though. This should be a good one.
Oh yeah.
Now the last two at night, 9-2 LSU. We'll be at 4-7 Texas A&M. So we'll see if the A&M fans stay after halftime, unlike what they did this past week when the band left. So did a lot of the fans. I don't know if you saw the pictures of the stadium. In that epic 20-3 victory over UMass on Saturday. But this will be on ESPN. LSU, they're a 10-point favorite. The over/under is 47.5. I just feel like Harold Perkins and B.J. Ojulari are going to wreak havoc on Connor Wigman at quarterback. I think LSU blows this team out. What do you think?
I do too. But once again, they don't. This has been a good game the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with you. I think LSU right now, they're peaking, and they're playing with a lot of confidence. And, it's going to be interesting to who's going to win the Heisman. I don't know. I mean, like is this a weekend where everybody's kind of going to be watching to see if these big numbers are posted? I think Jaden Daniels is going to have a huge game. If Harold Perkins has another 4 sacks, I mean, I don't know what that'll push him to, but could a true freshman defensive player win the Heisman Trophy? I mean, I don't know. I mean, is he the best player in college football? I think he's one of them.
Yeah, he's up there.
I mean, he's special. I mean, even some of these guys that have been announcing college football for a long time, they're like, man, this guy's good. And I think Max Duggan, his performance for TCU last week was Heisman worthy. He's a guy that nobody really talks about a whole lot, but man, I mean, and LSU sitting at number 5 in the country. All they got to do is win out, and they're in the dance. And who would have thought? Who? I even heard people calling in the Paul Feinbaum show the Monday after the FSU LSU game. He can't get it done. We don't need him. I mean, I'm like, dude, this one game, man. It's crazy how the fans act. But I like LSU big here.
Yeah, I do too. And talking about the Heisman, of course, and we're going to jump into it now. Tennessee playing Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt 5-6 of 2 straight SEC wins. Tennessee's 9-2. All 4 to come with that loss, and they lost Hendon Hooker as well. Tennessee, they are a 14-point favorite. This one over under is 64.5. Hendon Hooker getting hurt. I think he was probably the front runner or the number 2 guy at worst. I feel like it's probably going to be C.J. Stroud or Caleb Williams over at USC, and with Blake Corum getting hurt, we'll see what happens with him this week. We talked about that earlier. I'm just going to say it like this, and some people may laugh at me despite what has happened the past 2 weeks and Hendon Hooker not being in this game. Does Vanderbilt have a shot, Matt, at getting win number 6 and 3 straight SEC wins to close out the season?
Yeah. I mean, why not? I mean, I was stunned last weekend, to be honest with you, but you got to think they're probably playing with a lot of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably the biggest game between these two, and I don't know how long. Mike Wright's a dynamic player. I think he played high school ball at Woodward Academy, which I'm familiar with that. That's been always a good football program.
Mm-hmm.
But Joe Milton at quarterback for Tennessee is a good player too.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee had probably one of the best quarterback situations in the country before Hooker went down. Very unfortunate for Hooker, man. I mean, the guy's been great all year. And and where's Tennessee's psyche right now?
Yeah, that's a big thing.
It's kind of like Ole Miss last week. I mean, they just lost. They lost the SEC. They lost to well, they weren't going to play for the SEC championship, but they just lost a chance to play for a national championship. So I don't know. I'd love to see it. I really would. I'd give the edge to Tennessee. I think they're a better team, but it would not surprise me to see Vanderbilt knock them off. And you know what? That would be I would hate that for Tennessee, as good of a season as they've had and for their fans. I mean, I would, but then again, it'd be a great story.
Yeah, you're right. And then talking about Vanderbilt too, and I agree with you. I think Tennessee wins this game, but running back Ray Davis has ran for back-to-back games of 100 yards or more, and then they've used Mike Wright with him in the run game, and he's been efficient as a passer. I think that's been big for them last year. And we've talked about this all year long, that you could tell it when you watch them play. They're better. They've got a long way to go. Cartley's still got to find a lot more talent, but they play hard, and you could tell they were more talented. I think that hard work, that playing hard, has now equal to their playing better, and that's why these last 2 weeks they've won games. They have not won the last 2 weeks against Kentucky and Florida in a fluky way. They just outplayed both of them, because I feel like in both situations, and I'm not saying Cartley is a better coach than Mark Stoops or Billy Napier, but on those Saturdays, he was the better coach, and his team was the better coach teams in those matchups.
Yeah, and I mean, Clark Lee is a good football coach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no doubt about that. And, you know, when you saw him after they got that first win, how emotional he was. So that, to me, right there, you know, you could tell it means a lot. And I can tell a lot about a person's character by that. I did anyway. But I don't know, man. It's going to be crazy. But, I mean, Mike Wright, he's a dynamic player. You know, and, you know, running that zone read with a good running quarterback, it can be dangerous. And let's face it, Tennessee's defense got gashed last weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been, you know, you can score on them. You know, it's but I don't know, man. I just, if they get to 6 wins right here, Vanderbilt, I mean, I think that guy should be in the running for Coach of the Year.
Definitely should be getting a raise up there at Vanderbilt for sure. I may just get one now anyway. It's just getting to 5, because I didn't think that was possible going into the year. So finally, we got one more. We're going to jump back to 2:30 on CBS, the Iron Bowl. And this is a weird thing because neither team is trying to get to an SEC championship game. As far as right now, no national title implications on it or playoff implications, unless something crazy happens and Alabama has a chance to get back in it somehow. But 5-6 Auburn, the Cadillac Williams-led Auburn Tigers, will play Alabama, who's 9-2. Alabama is a 22-point favorite. The over/under is 49. Now, if this was the Brian Harsin-led Auburn Tigers, I say they have no shot, absolutely no shot. I don't believe they beat Alabama. I don't think that happens. But what I'm going to say here, Alabama's probably in for a fight. Because for the whole 4 quarters, we know one thing with Cadillac Williams as the head coach, this team will not quit. They're going to bring everything they've got from the first kickoff to the final whistle. I believe Alabama wins this game, but I think it's going to be much closer. I don't think they win by 22 points. What's your feeling about the Iron Bowl, Matt?
Well, Auburn's got a lot to play for. All right. And, you know, I think what was the line last year? About 22 points too, 21, 22 points, something like that. One thing that I've noticed about Auburn the last couple of games has been their second half adjustments. Last week, they outscored Western Kentucky 24-0. Against Mississippi State, they came roaring back. Texas A&M, that was just kind of a good old-fashioned fist fight. But what did we see as far as second half adjustments under Brian Harsin?
There was none.
There was none. Period.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I also heard something too where it was only Harsin and Keasaw week to week working on game plans, the offensive game plans. Now, why wouldn't you want to involve all your coaches? That if that's true, that's kind of like, hey man, that's kind of selfish, you know? But Caddy, man, they're playing hard, man. I mean, they're going to probably need to get a couple turnovers. The big matchup to me in this game is it's hard to just line up and run over Alabama. And Auburn hadn't been really throwing the ball, you know, a whole lot. And I think they're going to have to hit some passes, and Ashford's going to have to have no interceptions, no turnovers on offense. Nothing I'm noticing too about Auburn, they're not getting penalties a whole lot anymore. Now the defense got some silly ones last week, some personal fouls. That's another. I mean, just get up and go back to the huddle, man. You don't have to run your mouth. You're 4-6. I mean, come on, dude. But I don't know, man. I think it's going to be a decent game, though. I really do. I could see it being tight at halftime. Maybe Alabama pulling away in the fourth quarter by a couple of touchdowns, because I think what Alabama does as far as throwing the ball, Auburn's really not a good pass defending team. Although they did do well last week against one of the nation's better passing teams. So it's going to be fascinating, man. But I'm going to say this: Auburn's going to play hard. I mean, and that's always the case. But they're playing with a lot of emotion right now.
Yeah, I think the thing that's going to hurt them or do them in Saturday is the fact that they just don't have a passing game with Robbie Ashford. Yeah. I mean, he's decent when he gets out of the pocket on rollouts and throwing. But overall, from the pocket, he's not. He has a long way to go. There's a lot of development there. So, and against Alabama, you can't just line up and just run the ball. And you got to have some form of a passing game. Maybe the offensive coaches can be creative and figure something out to get something. Because Alabama, you know what they're going to do. They're just going to put everybody on line of scrimmage to stop Bigsby and Hunter. So that's the big thing for me going into this. As good as Auburn's played the last few weeks, the passing game is obviously not there, and it's just going to be hard to move the ball consistently against Alabama if they can't get some semblance of a passing game going.
Yeah, and I mean, they tried a big play down the field last week, and Shedrick Jackson dropped the ball. I mean, you still got to attempt deep passes. You have to. Just if the other team intercepts it, it's like a punt. I mean, I think Auburn here too, and this is. Auburn has gotten a lot better coaching the last couple of weeks. Their game planning, with their play calling. I mean, you got a guy like Ike Hilliard. Ike Hilliard played in one of the best offenses in college football history. I mean, Will Friend played at Alabama. I mean, those are good football coaches. And I've been really impressed with what they've done. I think they can't go straight at Alabama up the middle. They're going to have to hit them on the edges, on the perimeter, and maybe hit some screen passes. But Robbie Ashford is going to have the game of his life. And, that can happen.
Yep.
I mean, we saw last week. I mean, things can happen in a college football game, and especially this one, what it means to the teams that play in this state. And, and Auburn hung with them last year. Now, Alabama was a better team last year than they are this year, I think. So, we'll see, but I mean, I like Alabama probably by about 10 to 12 points.
Yeah, I do too. I think they'll probably pull away towards the end. Maybe he can have. I'm going to throw an old one out there for the audience. Maybe Robbie Ashford can have his Stephen Garcia moment.
Ooh.
2010. I had to pull that one out. I'm sure any Alabama fan listening to this wants to throw their device or whatever down on the ground since I brought up 2010 and Stephen Garcia. And that was the last time Auburn win and beaten Alabama at home. The comeback. That's the last time in 2010 when Auburn went into Tuscaloosa and won too. Because all the ones that Gus beat Nick were at Jordan-Hare. So a little other factoid. So Auburn can. Oh man, just imagine if they pull that upset, what people be saying about Cornell Cadillac Williams.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you this: they pull off that upset, he's gonna be carried off the field.
Yep.
I mean, that's just, and you know what? I don't know. I just from what Cadillac has brought to the team when the team was down and out, it's been pretty cool to watch. I mean, Cornell was a fiery player. He was a fantastic football player. Injuries hurt him in his NFL career, but I mean, you got to keep that, whether he's the head coach or not, or you got to keep him on the staff down there.
Yeah, so I hope whoever's next head coach, if it is Lane Kiffin or whoever it is, they will keep Cornell Williams on the staff. And Matt, that's going to wrap it up. Our picks for Week 13. We got one more of these to do next week. The SEC championship, the conference championship weekend. But if the listeners and viewers want to check you out, where can they? What you got going on over at lowdownsports.com, and what's the latest you got going on over at Field Level Media?
Yeah, I'm gonna do my lowdown on my college football picks probably Friday. And so it'll probably be up Friday, and yeah, I'm doing some college basketball previews and recaps for Field Level Media for Auburn basketball. Also, been covering the press conferences for the Atlanta Falcons with Arthur Smith. So that's up there on their site. And I'll be doing an Iron Bowl preview as well. So fieldlevelmedia.com. You can also find my writing at the cbssports.com. And you can go to like the Auburn basketball or Auburn football, and you can see the preview right there. And that's me. So pretty cool.
All right. Good deal. Good deal, Matt. Appreciate it. Like I said, we'll do this again one more time next week on a weekly, regular basis. It's been fun as always. And actually, before we go, I forgot I had one more question for you. And this is the most important question that I will ask you this evening. Thanksgiving is Thursday. Go to dish.
What's that?
What
Go to dish. Woo! Man.
Of course, you got the meat, but what's the what is the ideal Thanksgiving plate for Matt Lowe?
Well, of course, the dressing and giblet gravy. You know, I also like the green bean casserole, man. I love green bean casserole, and I'm not a big sweet potato guy, but we usually have peas too. I'm a filled peas guy, but yeah, the dressing, the gravy, the turkey, the ham, all of it. But yeah, man, I mean, I don't know. I'm really not a huge Thanksgiving guy. I mean, I like it, but it's just I don't like eating so much where I get so full.
Well, that's where Friday comes in. You can recover on Friday. There you go. Sit and watch football and recover. But anyways, Matt, I appreciate you doing this. Look forward to next week when we'll preview championship weekend. Thanks for doing it again, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you too, brother. Take care, man. Talk to you soon.
All right, buddy, and as always, appreciate Matt Lowe coming on the show and doing the previews. And we'll do it again next week. We'll preview the SEC championship game. We'll preview some other conference championship games next week as well. And we're going to have more guests next week. Of course, you'll get Coach and you'll get Matt, but in their episodes too, I'm planning on having a second guest on both of those editions of the show. So before we get out of here, on my professional Facebook page, Phillip Jordan Sports, I put two questions up there this week, and this was more early week Sunday Lane Kiffin question, and this is where I went with it. I said, will Lane Kiffin be the next Auburn head coach? I think we don't know for sure 100%, but just kind of feels it's heading that direction. And should he be the choice? Sound off below. Chad Dawson says, I like Lane, but I don't think – let me restart that over. I like Lane, but I don't think he fits at Auburn. I would look at Mark Stoops, Hugh Freeze, or Shane Beamer. Now, talking to Coach Howell on the show every week, he's very high on Shane Beamer. He thinks he's going to get a bigger job soon. Hugh Freeze, I feel like Hugh Freeze may be the number 2 guy there at Auburn if something falls through with Lane Kiffin. And Mark Stoops, well, he just signed a new contract with Kentucky. I just don't feel like Mark Stoops at Auburn. I feel like that's not where Auburn wants to go. I felt like Auburn's been big game hunting with this next hire, so I hadn't felt like that was the guy. Let's go with Kenton L. Hamilton. If they hire Lane Kiffin, I won't say War Eagle again until they fire him. He's classless, untrustworthy, and frankly an average coach. So look, while I believe a majority of the Auburn family, the Auburn fan base, would be very happy with Lane Kiffin, there are detractors. There are some that aren't big on Lane. So that is out there. And then Ken Maddox, best choice available, sure. Fit in at Auburn with the Creed, probably not. With that said, I'm sure he could get AU to 10 wins a year the fan base wants. But in the SEC, where South Carolina can drop over 60 points on you at any time, I'm not sure he's worth the money it'll take to get him. He won't save any Kirby Murray money without the resume. AU should get Freeze on the cheap, and then at least he would try to prove he wants a bigger payday. So there, kind of just some interesting thoughts there. Just a couple opinions on Lane Kiffin. Like I said, looks like we are headed that direction. And then, as you heard at the end there with Matt, I asked a question about Thanksgiving, and I wanted to connect this to college football, the sport we love so much. What are you thankful for? Question: what are you thankful for from this college football season? Alex Estes says Alabama won't be in the playoffs. Now I want Georgia out. I don't see that happen unless they lose to Georgia Tech and LSU, and they're definitely not losing to Georgia Tech. Turner Al, it's almost over, unfortunately, but go Gators always. Has been up and down as we talked about there, playing Florida State on Friday. And Brandon Eisman, last one college football teammate, LSU winning the SEC West. So Brandon's excited about that. Of course, he covers Florida State and LSU for us over there. Last word on college football. And that's going to do it for this edition of the show. Remember, you can check out all my written work over at Last Word on College Football. Hope to have a Iron Bowl preview up later on in the week. And also, we'll see this weekend, will I get to put out an article, a piece saying Lane Kiffin is the new head coach of the Auburn Tigers. We shall see. And honestly, if that does happen, if Lane does become the new coach, I may do a live reaction video to come in and get your thoughts and stuff as well. So pay attention to that. If Lane Kiffin news drops that he's coming to Auburn, or anybody gets hired as Auburn head coach through the weekend, if I'm available to jump on quickly onto a live video, we'll probably do that as well. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. The podcast is available on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. And if you are on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. And you can always email me at sports.philipjordan at gmail.com. And you can also check out on YouTube, the Phillip Jordan YouTube channel, soon to be Phillip Jordan Show YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for all notifications, and please leave a comment on a video, and I'll read that on a future edition as well. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. I will talk to you next week, next Tuesday, unless Lane Kiffin becomes the head coach at Auburn. Then I'll pop in here for a video, which that will go up on the podcast feed as well. But if not, if none of that happens, I'll talk to you guys on Tuesday when I'm joined by Coach Max Howell and some other guests as well. Once again, hope everyone has a great weekend. Happy Thanksgiving. And you've been listening to the Phil Jordan Show.